Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at Weirdest Facts About Gilgamesh by Billy Carson and Forbidden Knowledge.
Always a good time.
Yeah, so this one's all about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a 4,700-year-old text.
That's older than the Bible.
It is. And, we're going to be talking about all the crazy stuff in this book, like potential connections to genetic engineering, ancient technology, even biblical figures like Noah. I mean, how wild is that?
It is pretty mind-blowing when you start to see how ideas that we consider modern were already being explored thousands of years ago.
I know, right? Like, for example, Carson compares Gilgamesh to a designer baby, like how some parents today can choose certain traits for their children. I mean, how do you even begin to make that connection?
Well, I think Carson is focusing on the way Gilgamesh is described in the epic. It's almost like his creation was planned. His abilities were enhanced. And if you look at Sumerian texts, they talk about the Anunnaki. These beings with advanced capabilities, maybe even the technology for genetic manipulation. So it makes you wonder what they might have been capable of back then.
Yeah, it's like science fiction, but thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
And then there's Enkidu, the wild man, created as Gilgamesh's companion.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy, he knew nothing about civilization until he was introduced to bread, beer, and sex.
That's one way to learn about civilization.
Right, talk about a crash course in being human.
Well, it's interesting, right? It suggests that ancient civilizations might have seen these basic human experiences as a way to bridge the gap between wildness and civilized society, almost like a ritual transformation.
It makes you think about how our own definition of civilized has changed over time.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of societal norms, the story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu fighting over a bride is fascinating. These guys, they literally shake the city with their brawl.
Okay, so maybe not the best way to settle a dispute, but it does make you wonder about the role of marriage in ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah, back then, marriage wasn't just about love. It was about alliances, power dynamics, economic stability. So this episode really highlights the societal pressures and expectations placed on individuals, especially someone like Gilgamesh, a powerful king.
So it wasn't just about the woman. It was about all these other factors, too. It's like a microcosm of their whole society.
Precisely. Now let's move on to another interesting character, Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest. This guy is seriously terrifying. His roar is like a flood, his breath is death, and he can hear anything happening within 100 leagues.
Okay, hold on. That's straight up superpower territory. But then Carson throws out this wild theory. What if Humbaba wasn't a monster but a machine?
Yeah, it's definitely a provocative idea. The way Humbaba is described, his immense power, his sensory abilities, it almost evokes images of advanced technology, like some kind of ancient robot guarding a restricted area.
Wait, you're saying Humbaba could be like a super sophisticated security system? Like something straight out of a sci-fi movie?
Well, think about it. How would people thousands of years ago explain something as complex and powerful as, say, a robot with advanced sensors and weaponry? They might very well interpret it as a fearsome monster, something beyond their comprehension.
Okay, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
So you're saying we shouldn't dismiss these ancient myths as mere fantasy. They could be reflections of real technology, just misinterpreted through the lens of their time.
Exactly. The Epic of Gilgamesh challenges us to rethink our assumptions about what ancient civilizations knew and were capable of. Perhaps they possessed knowledge and technologies that we're only now beginning to rediscover.
That's incredible. And it brings us to the cedar forest itself. Gilgamesh wants to cut down the cedars, but Enlil, who's also known as Yahweh in the Bible, puts a stop to it.
Yeah.
Why were these trees so important?
Well, cedar forests were essential to the Mesopotamian ecosystem. They provided valuable timber for construction, shipbuilding, various other purposes. They were also considered sacred, a symbol of strength and resilience.
So Enlil stopping Gilgamesh from cutting them down, that's like an early example of environmental protection.
You could certainly interpret it that way. The story highlights the importance of resource management and recognizing the consequences of exploiting natural resources. It's a theme that resonates strongly today, especially with concerns about deforestation and climate change.
It's crazy how this ancient story connects to modern-day environmental issues. It shows that we've been grappling with these challenges for millennia.
It's a timeless struggle. And it raises the question, will we learn from the past, or are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes?
That's a question worth pondering. But before we get too deep into existential crisis mode, there's one more thing from this section of the book I wanted to touch on.
You're talking about the meteorite of Anu, right? And that's truly intriguing detail.
Yeah, Carson's speculation about its connection to the Black Stone and Mecca is wild. So you're telling me a meteorite mentioned in a 4,700-year-old text could be the same one revered by millions today.
It's a fascinating possibility, isn't it? Meteorites held immense significance in ancient cultures, often viewed as divine gifts or messages from the gods. The idea that an object of such celestial origin could transcend time and culture to become a sacred relic is incredibly compelling.
It really makes you think about the enduring power of belief and the deep connection humans have felt with the cosmos throughout history.
And it underscores the importance of studying ancient texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh. They offer us glimpses into the minds and beliefs of our distant ancestors, helping us understand the origins of our own cultural and spiritual traditions.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, connecting the fragments of the past to understand the present and perhaps even glimpse the future.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so exciting. We're uncovering hidden connections, challenging assumptions, and expanding our understanding of the human story.
And that's just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in the Epic of Gilgamesh. But before we move on, why don't we pause here and let our listener take a moment to digest all this incredible information. We'll be back soon to delve even deeper into this fascinating ancient text.
So before the break, we were talking about meteorites and like their significance, in those ancient cultures. And it's like you look up at the sky and you see those streaks of light, these objects falling from the heavens. It's no wonder they thought they were something divine.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine you're living thousands of years ago and you see a meteorite crash to Earth. It would be like seeing a miracle.
Exactly. And that reverence, it seems to have carried through to today. Think about the Black Stone in Mecca, a sacred object for millions of people around the world. Carson suggests it could be the same meteorite mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the meteorite of Anu.
Whoa, hold on. So you're saying a meteorite mentioned in a text that's almost 5,000 years old could still be important to people today?
Yeah, that's the beauty of these ancient texts, right? They make us rethink our understanding of history and even spirituality. Imagine the journey that meteorite may have taken from space to ancient Mesopotamia to its current place in Mecca. It's a story spanning millennia, connecting different cultures and belief systems.
It really makes you realize how much we still don't know about the past and how much there is left to discover. It also makes you wonder about all the other connections waiting to be unearthed. Speaking of connections, let's go back to the cedar forest for a minute. It's not just a backdrop for the story, right? It seems to play a much bigger role.
Oh, absolutely. The cedar forest, it represents something much deeper. Remember how Enlil, who we know as Yahweh in the Bible, forbids Gilgamesh from cutting down those cedars? This episode seems to touch upon that delicate balance between humanity and nature. It's like an early environmental message in the story.
Yeah, it's like even back then, people understood how important it was to preserve nature. But Gilgamesh, driven by his ambition, ignores those warnings. It kind of reminds you of how we often put progress over sustainability even today.
It's a timeless dilemma. And the consequences of ignoring those warnings, they're shown in Humbaba, the terrifying guardian of the forest. Remember how we were talking about Humbaba possibly being some form of advanced technology? Well, if the cedar forest represents this pristine, sacred natural space, then Humbaba could be like the ultimate deterrent, this powerful force protecting it from exploitation.
So instead of a monster, Humbaba could be like an ancient defense system, a warning to anyone who messed with the natural order.
Exactly. And that interpretation, it adds another layer of depth to the story, right? It suggests that the ancient Mesopotamians had a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all things and the need to respect the natural world.
Wow, I'm starting to see the Epic of Gilgamesh in a whole new light. It's not just a story about heroes and monsters. It's a reflection of our own relationship with nature and the consequences we face when we don't listen to its warnings.
And that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding. We're not just reading a story, we're uncovering layers of meaning, exploring philosophical ideas that are still relevant today.
I'm really starting to understand why this text has lasted for so long. It speaks to something fundamental about the human experience.
Exactly. And as we continue exploring the epic, we're going to find even more profound insights. Are you ready to continue our exploration?
I'm all in. What else is waiting for us? It's really amazing how these stories from so long ago can still speak to us today, about our place in the world, our relationship with nature.
Yeah, thousands of years separate us, but that core of the human experience, the search for meaning, the desire for connection, it transcends time.
Absolutely, and that's what makes the Epic of Gilgamesh so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just about adventure, it's about dealing with loss, facing mortality, and figuring out what it really means to live a good life.
Right. And let's not forget about friendship. The bond between Gilgamesh and Enkidu is a huge part of the story.
It is. They challenge each other. They learn from each other. And in the end, they help each other grow. It's like even a king needs a friend to keep him grounded.
He does. And their adventures together, facing monsters, defying the gods. That's the stuff of legends. But their individual journeys are important too.
Yeah, think about Gilgamesh's quest for immortality after Enkidu dies.
Right. He's driven by that fear of death to find the secrets to eternal life.
But he eventually learns that real immortality comes from the legacy we leave behind, the stories that are told about us long after we're gone.
It's like our lives have meaning, not just in what we achieve, but in the impact we have on others, the memories we create, and the stories we share.
And that brings us back to Carson's analogy of being a CSI agent for ancient information.
We're digging through these layers of history
Piecing together these fragments of knowledge.
to understand not only the past, but also ourselves.
And what's so cool is that the Epic of Gilgamesh is just one piece of this huge puzzle,
There are so many other ancient texts waiting for us to explore.
each one offering a unique perspective on the human experience.
It makes you wonder, what other secrets are hidden in those texts? What other connections might we discover? What other insights might change how we view the past and even the present?
That's the beauty of it all. There's always something new to learn, something new to explore, something new to think about. So to our listener, what really stood out to you in this deep dive? What resonated with you? What questions are still lingering? Keep exploring the Epic of Gilgamesh. And remember, every text, every story is a conversation waiting to be had across time, across cultures, connecting us all in this shared human experience. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those imaginations fired up.